best new games
Oh,
category.
oh,
All
oh.
this
Gotta
stuff,
say,
man.
we're live now, so we got to
What
put
is
the
it?
oh on there.
Oh, Pico. It's excellent. Yeah. And they went to they were showing off at some expo there in the UK over the weekend, live streaming it on Periscope, as a matter of fact. Some cool stuff, man. I'm just super proud of them. Just super happy for them. I mean, just to see that.
I'm glad for him too. I
Yeah.
probably saw my post. Oh no, you don't go to the forums too much. I posted a link in the forums entry. I called it Go Go Hopico
Yeah.
and pointed out that they're out. And then I did a screenshot of what you're showing here. Except I didn't see that they had editor's choice. They may
Yeah.
not have at the time I did the screenshot.
I don't know. I think I think it went directly to it. Do not
Yeah,
pass
it could
code.
be.
Do
Well, and
not.
they deserve it. I mean, they did a hell of a job on the heck of a job on the on the as far as art and theming. You know, one thing I have not been able to figure out how to do yet is when you go to their product page on the device and you click on it and it comes up with a little box. It's all themed
Yeah.
just the way they do their colors and everything. I don't know how to do that.
Let's see. Let's go to the site. Hold on. You talking about the
Well, you got to be on the
pico-game.com?
device. I don't know what it looks like on iTunes on your PC. Now, what I'm saying is when you're on your device, let me get mine up here.
And you're going to the actual
App Store.
the App Store.
You go to the App Store on your device,
Uh-huh.
and then you click
Oh,
on
okay.
Hopico.
I think I know what you're talking about.
Yeah, I'll share my.
You're gonna share your screen? I was gonna share my
It
screen.
helps if I run the thing first. Let's do that.
I can remember. You get the
Where is it?
you got it? Yeah, they have like a full page, whatever, right?
I'll show you instead of me trying to keep talking
You,
about it.
you know what I'm talking about? Those the
Intelligent.
combination of words. You know, you're all like
Combination
whatever.
of words? Yeah, I'm really bad with that. The combination of words. Where is
You're
this?
all like whatever, man.
Windows 10. You're not helping me. I installed Windows 10 a little while back. I'm still trying to get my feet under me as far as finding.
What was a Reflector? Is that the app? Maybe I can bring it up for you.
It's not Reflector.
Yeah,
I
I have.
use the other. Oh, maybe it is Reflector.
Well, I
Probably
have a
not.
Reflector. Oh,
But
they want me to upgrade. I don't want to upgrade now. Well, all these, the good thing and the bad thing about all these apps these days is they're real all up to date. The bad thing is every time you want to use them, they want to update.
that's not what I wanted either. I'm clicking on stuff left and right here. It'd help
Uh,
if I could just remember the name. I pinned this stupid thing and now it's not here. Shoot you. Oh, knuckle sandwiches. Say something interesting while I'm flailing about.
all right. Well, here I'll show you. I'll tell you what I'll do. While you're flailing about, I'll actually show their landing, their what do you call it? Their promotional site, I guess. Here, check this out, man. They are like, they got it going on. They got video launch trailer videos. They have we can get it on where you can get it. Press release stuff. Live action screenshots. I guess this is maybe like some GIF stuff going on. GIF.
GIF.
Is it GIF or GIF?
GIF.
Well, people say GIF, I think, because there's Jif peanut butter, right? Isn't there Jif peanut butter? Or is that spelled differently? See, I don't know I don't know who's right. Anyway, they got samplers here. Look at those audio tracks, music tracks. They got wallpaper for your phone. I mean, ringtones.
Come out.
Social media. I mean, they went all out. They went all stinking out.
They went all out, and now it's not working. Okay, you know what? I'm just gonna hold up my iPad because this is ridiculous. I got it running. Okay, iPad, come hither, Jan. iPad.
Yeah, show us the iPad. Yeah, the original screen share.
Okay, let's see what I'm talking about. You see how it's all black and they got the color scheme going on here? Oh yeah, idiot, just clicked on it. Good job. Let's try that again. So that's what theirs looks like, right? It's all black. Yeah. But then if you go to one of mine, let me find one here.
Yeah.
Oh man.
Yeah, they got this crazy thing going on with it's all themed. I don't know. We'll have to ask them how they did that because I've seen other developers
to do that.
I've seen other developers do it too, and I don't know if it's because they're editor's choice. Oh, look, because it does say right there on the thing, it says App Store Editor's Choice Notes. So it's got to be an Apple thing.
Because then when you do like one of mine, it's just all regular old white and boring and just the artwork.
Yeah, it's just a regular old listing, right? Yeah.
Yeah. So maybe it's because they got contacted and they go, okay, hey, give us some extra goodies to theme this up.
Yeah. Yeah, I don't know. I'm gonna have to ask about that. Everybody typically holds the cards pretty close to their chest. I mean, not that the laser dog guys aren't.
Ask them how they did that, because that's that's kind of a crucial. If there's a tool out there I'm just not seeing, or like some file formats you got to drop on your thing to make it work, I want to do that. It's little stuff like store listings. Some people I see, they're able to make like bullet lists and stuff in their store listings. I don't know how to do that. Actual bullets.
Yeah,
and
I've
like
seen that.
Symbols and stuff.
I don't know if that's. Yeah, I don't know if they're doing emojis or what they're doing. But
I'm taking it a little bit far. There's no emoji, but like simple stuff like a bullet instead of just putting a plus or an asterisk. I don't look lame. Have an asterisk. I look cool. Have a real traditional bullet image. So
you're not talking about putting wingdings in there. You actually want to full on just have like
wingdings,
bullets.
Yeah, I just want to make it look professional.
Right.
I don't want to make it look like some third grader submitted it and said, "Here's my first app ever."
Yeah. You don't want it to be like a lost dog poster.
Like a lost dog. That's sad. Our neighbors moved in. We have some new neighbors moved in, just a couple houses down, and they first day here, still they haven't even unpacked yet. They lost their dog.
Oh no!
The dog wandered away because he obviously didn't know where he was.
He's headed home. He's going back.
And then
where they came
to make things worse, so we found out a couple hours later, and we helped them scour the neighborhood. Couldn't find the dog. Found people who had seen the dog, tried to get it to come, and it wouldn't. It was like it was too scared. It wouldn't come over. Then several days later, I had to drive my wife to the airport, and we're driving, and we're late. You know how it is when you go to the airport, you're always late. So we're late. There's no stopping. Here's a dog on the side of the road. I swear to God, it's the dog. We're like, and he's fine. He's walking in the right direction to go home and everything, but he's several miles away still, or a mile away.
You didn't stop and throw him in the car?
No, I didn't stop and throw him in the car. It was cars everywhere. It was chaos. No. And I felt so bad. I hope my neighbors aren't watching.
So what you're telling me is you've got the dog locked in your basement. It's a ransom note, right? You put a ransom note in there.
What are you talking about?
Their letterbox.
I'm trying some foreign cuisine. I hear dogs on the menu. That's terrible.
Hey, in some countries,
sure. People eat all kinds of stuff. Horse.
Exactly, all kinds of stuff, man. Snails.
I've eaten snails, but not anymore.
Yeah.
Because anymore you eat snails, they go, yeah, those aren't really snails. They're just slugs. What? That's disgusting.
Those are snails without the mobile homes.
Yeah.
Hey,
somebody else shows up here.
Okay, so
week, I was like the mime.
Rob is doing device testing because we're getting ready to do a public release. So he's not coming. Michael said he needed to leave, work early tonight, whatever that's about.
Oh. Well, hopefully everything's good. Yeah, what's up with that leaving early?
Alex, had a kid or something. I don't know.
Oh.
Whatever
I'm
that's about.
still not hearing a reason why he can't be here.
Right. Exactly.
This is his one chance only. See, he was threatening to call me Eddie on the show. Somebody posted in the forums, right? They said something. What was it? Oh, here's how it went. One person asked a question, and another person posted back an answer, and then they posted a link to one of my plugins, and they said, Eddie, something roaming gamer. And so Alex saw that, and he chimes in. He goes, "Well, that's it. From now on, I'm going to call him Eddie."
That's funny. Because your name is officially Edward, right?
Edward. My full name is Edward.
See, here's the thing. My first name is Eddie, and everybody always
really Eddie.
Yeah, at first my middle name is Charles. My first name is Eddie, and people always ask me, "Is it
I'm
Edward?"
I'm calling you Eddie.
Well, they always wanted to know if it was Edward, and I'm like, no, it's Eddie, just like I said.
EDDY or EDDIE?
EDDIE.
1950 style.
Yeah, yeah, old school stuff. For
Yeah.
sure.
Not that hippie EDDY thing.
No, man. It's OKAY, not okay. You know what I'm saying? It's all the whole
I'm
thing.
not hating on the Y, but
It's sometimes why, but not this time.
yeah. So my usual comeback is when people say, "Well, can I call you Eddie?" I say, "No, only the ladies can call me Eddie."
Yeah, all the ladies.
Only the ladies.
All the ladies.
They're gonna do it like the ladies. Only the ladies. I can't even do it. With my Courvoisier.
If you can't pull it off, you can't do it. You can't.
Yeah. I'm not the lady.
That's funny. Well, hey, did you speaking of geeky things, did you see that Android announced some things today? Google announced some things today.
Oh no, I've been all heads down working on my.
Well, let me tell you, man. Let me tell you. I watched the special edition of Twit, This Week in Tech. For those who don't know what I'm talking about, like nobody. And they released a new phone, a new super phone. You know, what was that whole Nexus, the Nexus line? You know, a Google Nexus phone.
Oh, they got a new Nexus out?
Yeah, which is, you know, it's like official. It's like legit. You know what I'm saying? Like it's not somebody else's phone. It's full on Google's phone, right? So if you buy that, you'll actually get updates in a timely manner as opposed to going through the carriers.
Whenever they feel like it, if they feel like it.
Yeah, exactly. But it's you know, it's got some pretty nice specs. Looks like a nice phone. And then Chromecast came out today. So a new version of Chromecast. I don't know if you guys have invested in the original Chromecast at all. The $35 little, you know, plug-in thing. Put it
No,
back
I
here.
kept thinking about it. So the new one's out.
I did too, and yeah, and the way they're pitching this, one, they didn't call it Chromecast. They call it the cast. They call it just like a cast, right? So they're turning it into a verb. I think, you know, just like you Google things, you
They got all kinds of stuff on the site.
You cast the video onto the TV, which I thought was kind of genius because I was like, well, nobody's going to Apple TV. You know, like they'll throw it up on the Apple TV, right? But they're not going to cast it. So there's no verb action going on there.
Trying to go with the verb route to get it more active.
But one of the things that they were kind of pushing was taking it with you. So they really want it to be something that you carry, you know, like you can put it in your hotel room or you can put at your mom's house or at a friend's house or whatever. So they went so far as to make it lemonade yellow or coral red, or you can get a black one.
I'm seeing Chromecast and Chromecast audio, maybe. Oh, okay, yeah.
Yeah, so there's Chromecast, and then the Chromecast audio is streaming audio to your speakers. So they've got, again, you plug it into your system, and you can stream audio to it.
Receiver, then?
Yeah, no, I don't think so. It's the same kind of form factor as the TV, except for it has an audio jack as opposed to an HDMI connector.
How much are these little?
And it draws power?
I don't know about the Chromecast audio, but the Chromecast, did not have an external power source. So somehow it's getting power off of the television. I guess maybe through the HDMI.
Well, historically, didn't they come with a
USB?
Micro USB port on the side, so you can sort of plug it into the USB port? Most TVs these days have a USB port.
It's got a micro USB port on it.
Does it have a micro USB? They didn't feature it when they were showing it off, so maybe it's just one of those.
I'm looking at the specs now.
They may have just left it off just for visual purposes.
Yeah, they probably did.
But they didn't make any mention about external power, though. When they showed it off, they just plugged it into the HDMI connector.
Yeah, it says here in the specs it's got 5-volt, 1-amp power supply.
Yeah, which the
different power supply.
The Fire Stick. It says it needs external power, but I plugged it into my TV and it works just fine without.
Well, if you got a USB 2.0 plug, it should, and then a certain rating, it should be able to be rated up to 1 amp.
Maybe
some HDMI ports I think do provide. Obviously they're providing some sort of power.
Yeah. So maybe that's it. I don't know.
I was wrong there. You're right. The HDMI. I was reading. Slight detour change here. I still want to talk about this, but I was reading about like the next up and coming HDMI spec, HDMI 3 or 4 or something, I don't know. But I was reading this, and then I was like, wow, I didn't know all these features existed in the current version of HDMI. Like, wow, this is way cooler than I thought it was. I just thought HDMI was like, video, audio. Oh, that's cool. No, it's got data and power and
Yeah, I mean,
microwaves your burrito for you. It's got all of them.
we gotta get some more people on this call. My plan tonight was to do some work and lurk. There's only three of us. There's only three of us. That just makes me a bad participant.
Well, you can lurk. That's fine. We'll just.
Well, I might from time to time, but if we get some more people, you'll see me lurk with more gusto.
Lurking with more gusto. Okay, well, we got enough people here on the show now to talk about what I wanted to talk about next week, or next week. Yeah, what I wanted to talk about next week. No, last week. I've only had 2 sips. I'm already going downhill. Okay. Good. What's this? Have I got a little debris here? What's going on?
A little cork action.
No.
Hey, Jason, do you have a fan or something blowing intermittently?
I do have I have a ceiling fan above me that I can turn off.
Is your microphone on your headphones or in your computer?
Well, I'm using a different computer than I do now, and it has. Here, let's just. Okay, I'm going to do this.
Yeah, we can hear that.
Okay, so this is not the mic then. Eh? Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I can turn off the ceiling fan above me.
Either that or I thought your stomach was
I have the air conditioner running too. I don't know. Up in New York today, it's like the humidity got turned back on. It had been really cold and felt like fall was coming, and I just walked the dog before getting on the call, and it was like I came back and I'm like it's like walking into a sauna.
I know. I saw your
days for this. Once it's October, forget it.
I know. I saw your post about how it was. You can finally sleep with the windows again open again.
Man.
Yeah, I stopped that when my wife and I got married. She used to sleep with the windows open, and I was like, how do you keep people from crawling in your window at night? She's like, I don't worry about that. And I'm like, but your window's open.
That's what you're here for now.
Oh, I kick them in the...
That's what I'm here for now. Are you kidding me?
I'm trying not to use any bad words here. I'm not sure if that's right on the edge of a bad word, but anyway. You know what I'm saying there.
Keep drinking, Ed. You get more charming.
I'm doing great. So last week, when I couldn't even turn on my camera or speak, all I could do was type.
Were you at like a rock club or?
Oh, he was, yeah.
That was the worst internet connection I've had forever.
He was an official groupie.
Yeah.
Roadie. Not a
Roadie groupie.
Although roadie is really kind of a derogatory term.
Is it?
Yeah. There's a connotation to roadie that there isn't for the male variant, which is techie. But anyways, I don't really care.
I thought groupie would be more...
groupie... Roadie,
Groupie would be worse.
Groupies would be the ones who show their favor, and roadies are the ones who don't get first dibs, but,
This show is going to rapidly be...
Show their favor. I love it.
Show their favor. That's a nice
So hey there, wifey. You want to show your favor?
Yeah.
I'll remember that next time. That'll be my
back to what I was
that'll be my move for next time.
No, you just got to crawl in through the window.
Good Lord. Okay, see, there was the line. Just right over it. Just right over it. What does Joey say in Friends? He's like, you can't even see the line anymore. The line is a dot to you.
I never watched Friends. Yeah.
Really?
Never?
You could get it on Netflix.
I can.
You can if you had Netflix or television.
So, do I have myself muted? No. Okay,
no, you don't. We're just ignoring you.
You're fired, and you're fired.
What did you want to talk about last week?
Oh, yeah.
I wanted to talk about controls, but this is making me think of something else. Actually, before I talk about that...
oh, man. He's queuing it up here.
For the Hangout.
Did turning the fan off help, by the way?
Yes, it did.
Okay, good.
So for the Hangout, the morning Hangout, we're going to change the game, and we're going to do a different game. We're gonna co-opt our current content into something else. You know what I thought was, I went through all this thinking. I said, what can we do with this? What can we do with this game? Never realizing that I was limiting myself to like the inputs because I was thinking in mobile terms. We should do a desktop game next.
Oh
Ooh.
yeah. Oh, that'd be cool.
Yeah, that would open up the gamut of inputs and make things a lot more interesting in terms of what we can do for.
You know
movement.
that would be a nice. It would definitely be a nice transition into desktop because now desktop is more possible, and then
Totally possible.
of course Apple TV is not officially supported by Corona, but I mean it's another Apple platform, right, that people are interested in. So as I understand it, at least from talking to Walter, a lot of the traditional inputs for touch devices just don't apply to Apple TV. And so maybe going that route with desktop and getting people accustomed to working with controllers as opposed to touch would be a good.
See, I think you should not do controllers out of the gate. I think it would be interesting to go old school with it, do something with tech keyboard input to begin with, and then maybe add controller support.
I would definitely do that. You're talking about the morning gig?
Yeah, I'm thinking like make a Commander Keen clone, controlled with keyboard controls, and then you could do a whole segment for porting to controller support.
Yeah, or adding it on top.
Do you guys know if
the
Romero is using Corona for his Dangerous Dave reboot? I know he's using it for the project he's working on with his kid.
Which one? Who?
John Romero.
I don't know.
Because he's a decent Corona SDK booster out there.
Oh
and
yeah.
He's definitely using it to work on a project he's working on with his kid called Gunman Taco Truck, which looks really fun.
Yeah.
And he's getting ready to release like a reboot of Dangerous Dave.
Yeah. Why couldn't my dad be a famous video game developer and my mom be a famous video game developer / artist?
We're all too old for that, but. But yeah, it's but I mean, with the kids now, I'm really looking forward. So my story is, I grew up decently with video games. Like we had a Nintendo by the time I was say 10, and that was I poked around with the Commodore 64 before that a little bit, but I grew up with them, and so to me it's part of childhood. My wife did not at all, and to her it's like I don't know if I want for the kids and all that. So my thinking with it is, I go, we can turn it into a creative exercise. So let's build a video game. Let's not necessarily play one. I mean, we'll play them, but what do you want to make? We can turn it into a more of a creative exercise. Although I suppose that's Minecraft, right?
Well, yeah, I think that I hear where you're going, and I think that you either have that interest or you don't, because. Yeah. I did the same thing. I went through the same probably experiences that you did. I mean, my first console, was an Atari, right, old school Atari, and then there was like I don't remember the lineage, but it seemed like there was we had a TI 994A. I don't know if you remember that device.
What OS was that over on?
It took
994A.
Texas Instruments made it.
I even had it with the voice module.
Yeah, it took modules, so you could plug in games and play Donkey Kong and all that kind of stuff like that. And it had you could write basic programs in it and stuff.
That computer was way ahead of its time.
Oh, it was totally. I mean, without a doubt. And then I coveted a trash 80, and then friends had Commodore 64s and VIC 20s and all those types of things. Hey, Jason, your mic's.
Oh. We have small gremlins making noises.
Yeah.
I'll just mute myself when I'm not talking.
Somebody's making popcorn. Yeah, it went away.
Tasty popcorn. Yeah, that your stomach's like that was good dinner.
Yeah, so I went through all those, and every turn I wanted more. It was I couldn't get enough of it, right? And there wasn't at the time there wasn't a whole lot of that stuff. If you weren't in Silicon Valley, then there wasn't a whole lot for you to take in. There was some trade hobbyist magazines and things like that, but you couldn't really get your hands on a lot of stuff. And bulletin boards and BBSs and all that other stuff that came up, that was all long distance charges and not accessible really to somebody without an allowance. So, but at the same time, you flip it over and here's Corona SDK, and I'm like, hey kids, why don't we make some video games together? Let me do some stuff, hey, let's learn how to program, I'll teach you how to program and all this stuff like that. And my kids could care less. They could care less about any of that stuff, right? And I'm like, are you kidding me? Are you kidding me?
Do they enjoy consuming it? Are they into playing?
Oh, sure. Oh, sure. I mean, yeah. I'm sure they like. I mean, don't get me wrong. My kids will draw on tablets, and they'll use the iPad, and they'll use Xbox. We have a couple Xboxes, and yeah, they'll use their computers, and they know how to use the electronics. But as far as like having that same sort of passion for creating something with it, it's not there. Right, and I'm not saying it's never going to be there. It's just that, when I was 11 years old, I just couldn't get enough of it. It was cool, and I don't know if it's just because it's just always been there for them, and like for me it wasn't there, and then suddenly it was, and it was like, whoa, what is this thing?
Yeah,
right?
Like I remember discovering HyperCard. HyperCard blew my mind. I loved that. Do you guys know HyperCard?
Nope.
It was an Apple-developed piece of software for Macintosh operating system, so post Apple II. I don't know what, it probably came around in System 5 maybe or 6, and it was a precursor to the web. Really, it was. Cards that are hyperlinked together, and you could add buttons, and you could do some graphics things. It was what the original Myst was built in, actually.
Oh, okay. Well, no, we couldn't. We had computer classes, at our schools, and if you didn't get in early, you didn't get in.
Oh, see, none of this was in school for me. I had a brother who was sort of into it, and had I remember he bought a Mac Classic. And he saved up his lawnmower money and bought an old boxy Mac with a giant weird boxy mouse, and I would get on it any chance I could. So that was and then I discovered HyperCard, and I would try. It never completed anything, but I would start prototyping little games and doing whatever. And then I discovered Macromedia Director, and that was a big leap forward for me. I could start messing around with that. I'd do weird school projects in it, not for computer classes, just because it was of interest to me.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, but I guess that's something we have in common, and my kids are only 2, so who knows if they'll have that or not.
Yeah, and see, my kids have been Max, my son, he's been using a computer since he was 2, and Maggie is just it's just always been a part of their life, right? So to them it's not. I mean, it's like water. It's like food, it's like air, it's like whatever, right? Like, meh. So, I think every generation goes through that, right? Every generation's got
what is the cool emerging technology for them then? Like, what's the thing that maybe you don't get that they're into, or maybe you get it, but
no. See, that's it. I don't think there is. I just don't think there is at this point. It's all just there.
Yeah.
And everything new that comes along is just an incremental of something that was already there. Whereas, we were getting something that was I don't know, it hadn't existed before.
Gargantuan.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, it would have to be somewhere along the scale of they can now build their own rocket ship in their backyard, right? Right? They could.
They're in the refinement stage now.
Yeah, it's incremental. It's incremental changes, and there's nothing.
Well, they'll fly to Mars. There's water there now, apparently.
It's who where now?
There's apparently water on Mars, flowing water.
Water on Mars. Where did you see this?
Probably on. I think it was like the Daily Show or something.
Oh, okay.
But no, but you know, they made jokes about it. But
Daily Show
NASA is apparently claiming that they have found actual water, like
I'm sure
flowing
that there's water on
away.
Mars. There has to be water on Mars, but I would assume that it mostly is frozen, if and under the surface.
But you know, it gives new. I don't know. They always talk about, you know, it's like they're going to need to get a lot more money than they have now if they're going to send a manned mission to Mars.
Well, I hope we last long enough to send a mission to Mars.
Yeah.
Consider,
You mean us as three old men, or you
No,
mean
I
us
mean
as a
we as-
species?
things are starting to go all pear-shaped again and cold.
Oh
borders.
no, I think things have always been pear-shaped.
Yeah.
No, let's keep going. I'm breaking out the
Sergey
tinfoil
on here,
hat.
so I
Let's
can
do
say it, man. That Putin guy, he's a nutter.
Yeah. Well, it's all pear-shaped. Everybody's misunderstanding everybody. I put a link in the
I don't
chat.
think
to-
anybody's misunderstanding. I think they're just ignoring.
No, that's true. That's true.
You can throw
Yeah.
up all the flags you want. I'm not going to pay any attention to what you need or want.
Right.
It's all about me, baby.
I put a link in the chat to the New York Times article. There's Mars Life Liquid Water or something. From,
An ad.
it was
I
from-
need an ad blocker right now.
It was from yesterday. So I'll have to go read it later. I haven't been paying attention.
Field. That's
See, this
the
is
ad.
how is it that they could possibly find water on Mars, and I don't know. It's not. I mean, has it been all over the news? I don't actually watch the news, so I guess I can't say. I was going to say, how can it not be a big thing? But then
I don't really either. I was doing
Yeah, I
dishes
think a lot
tonight
of
and put
people
on the
don't
Daily
care.
Show. I think that's it too. I think
Oh, this website's annoying.
space
Stop it.
travel's just not.
Oh, that's real classy. I'm trying to get this stupid ad to click close, and every time I put my mouse over the little X, it moves.
Is this on the New York Times? Is this the article that Charles
I'm
linked to?
totally distracted by their way. They're trying to get me to click on that ad big time. I'm clicking and it goes, woo, move, no, follow the X. Come on, you can do it.
it's terrible.
Whack-a-mole. Hmm.
So did you see? Okay, so did we finish up the topic? You were going to do. You're going
I
to do a
never
new.
even asked my topic.
I don't even know if you started the topic.
Well, you're
I know,
changing,
I started
changing
it
up the
and
game
then
on
about
the.
controllers. So I said controllers, right? Or controllers, keyboard, and all that, which is really sounds cool to me for doing on the morning show, is adding in new controllers and using doing a desktop game. So having said that, the reason I thought of that in the first place is I was asking myself, how much does mobile limit your ability to make games? Because if you're like me, you're kind of coming from I did all my gaming on desktops first, and primarily. So I think really in terms of desktops, keyboard, mice, controllers, and so it's always a struggle for me to say, what's a cool game that I can make where all I can do is tap on the screen, and the most I can hope people will ever be able to understand is click on a button they can see, or one touch, Anything more complicated, and people are going to go, oh, it's too complicated.
You could swipe.
So, how much do you think that the mobile input limits your ability to make a game? Just games, not apps. I lost Charles. Charles is frozen. Clearly, Charles is limited because he's now. He's thinking really hard about it.
I don't know. I mean, I think the challenge is not to think of it as a limitation, but to think of it as, that's like saying it's comparing a mobile game to a desktop game might be like comparing a video game to a board game, right? Both are valid, but they just have different syntax. They just have different.
You see, you say you're not. Don't be limited, but now you're struggling to come up with a way to say that you're not limited.
No, I guess I'm just thinking let's think of a game. Think of a good single touch game, a Crossy Road or a Flappy Bird or a what was the one that came last year after Flappy Bird when the single full screen touch things was sort of, there was one about you were a lumberjack and you were chopping
We totally lost him. I think if we want to be on the Hangout, we need to reconnect to him.
Yeah. It still says live up in the corner, but if the host is gone,
Yeah, why don't we give him a second? If he doesn't show up, we'll hang up and go back.
fair enough. But I mean, the temptation is to think of these games as lesser somehow, but I don't know if that.
I don't think that. For me, no. What I'm saying is I want to express the game, but to express some like mechanics. Like a good example is you played Asteroids in the arcade, and you had a joystick, right? So really, the natural way to play Asteroids is with some kind of analog input of some sort, or something that mimics that.
Yes.
But you see people do like buttons, and a fire button.
Yeah, no, I hate those. I hate those things.
But as soon as you try to do a joystick on the screen, people lose their mind. They're like, "Oh, I can't figure it out."
I've got a prototype, and I'm pretty proud of it. One of these days, I'm going to revisit it and build something out of it. And it was inspired by this great classic Mac game called Harry the Handsome Executive. And this game was great. You were a little guy in an office in a swivel chair, a rolling swivel chair, and you kicked yourself around by rolling around.
This looks like an EGA game.
Yeah, you found videos of it?
Yeah.
But it was great. And I wanted to steal that mechanic, and I built it, and I thought I came up with a pretty clever mechanic for how to do it. So it was, you could place your thumb or your finger anywhere on the screen.
Mm-hmm.
If you swiped left or swiped right, depending on how hard you swiped,
mm-hmm.
you would swivel yourself in that direction. Mm-hmm. And if you swiped up towards the top of it, that would be kicking your feet. And if you went like this, inched down, that would be like your feet sort of pulling your feet forward, and at different speeds.
Oh man!
So if you went,
here he is. He's back.
Hey Charles.
You there, buddy?
You there?
Are you there? I don't know sign language.
Charles, have we got you? Is he seeing us? This is.
No, I'm back.
Okay.
Yeah, my MacBook Air has been misbehaving for the past week or so, and I think it's because I deleted some files that were labeled VM.
Yeah, that's probably not a good idea, Charles.
And I thought it was
VM, like virtual machine, like a parallel.
I thought I was deleting. I used to have some VMware software on my machine to run Windows for like Corona cards and stuff like that, and I thought I was getting rid of some files related to that, and apparently it wasn't. So
that's why I don't like. One thing I won't say that. That's one of the things I have never liked about the Mac. Is it has a terrible uninstall. Now,
historically,
to be fair,
you would just delete the application and that was it. And
right.
But I don't know if that's really the case so much anymore.
Well, I had this.
Okay, I jones for the day of like Windows when you could just like I want to uninstall an app, so I'll just delete the folder. I'm done. Right. So that's kind of like where OS X is.
Yeah. And generally it works, and I actually have another app that I use sometimes to clear out any other related files. Something that has data files that are associated with it. But in this case, this was just me. I have a program that I run. It will look at the volume, and then it will show me where all my space is taken up. So you take up a lot of space in the photo library. You can take up a lot of space in video files because I do a lot of video editing. And so I try to ferret these things out and then get rid of them, move them off to backup drives and all this other stuff, right? And so I came across these files, and they were fairly large, and I was like, VM, I think I can just get rid of those. So I got rid of like 3 or 4 of them, and I think that was a mistake because now it's been acting up ever since.
But I was trying to find. Oh, sorry.
Oh, sorry. But I was going to say, El Capitan comes out tomorrow, so I'm good. I can
I tried putting the Gold Master. I was provisioning a machine for a friend, and I tried putting the Gold Master version on it, and it worked just fine. There's some things I really liked about it, but I'm still using Adobe CS6, and I will say this, you cannot install Adobe CS6 fresh on El Capitan and use it.
Really?
So I did some searching. It sounds like some people have been able to use it a little bit, so maybe if you do an in-place upgrade, it's a little bit different. But the install process resulted in a no-go. So for me, I'm not ready to go.
Phantom driver things.
Is it a deal breaker?
I'm not ready to commit to Creative Cloud yet, and I do like having the whole Creative Suite at my fingertips.
Well, I committed to the Windows 10 update a couple weeks back, and it's been a journey.
Were you running 8 already?
No, I never did.
Oh, so you skipped 7 to 10, so that is a big jump.
Yeah, no, but 7. My favorite Windows variants have been Windows XP. That's my all-time favorite. Then Windows 7, and none of the rest. I started on Windows 2, so which most people have probably never even heard of, Windows 2, but
I want to say 3.1 was my first dip into.
Yeah, Windows 2 is an all-text interface that used, you know, those extra 128 characters that come with the extended character set. You know, like 0 to 128 are A, B, C, D, and uppercase A, B, C, and 1, 2, 3, and all that.
Mm-hmm.
If you look at the extended character set from 128 through 255. Where they got like the blocks and little squiggly lines and all that. They use those to make the entire interface. So a cursor on Windows 2.0 was literally a whole character. It wasn't a pixel.
Wow.
So I mean, you know, you could click on a whole character block. So your screen was 80 by 40.
I do remember having a Commodore 128 that had some sort of GUI, Windows, Mac inspired. You know, you had to have a mouse and you could drag one. I can't remember what it was called now. I do remember playing around with that back in the day.
Trying to find the Windows 2. Actually.
Oh God, this is so funny. I'm trying to find. So I'm digging through my abandoned projects folder to try and find that Harry the Handsome Executive clone that I was working on.
Oh, you know what? I'm sorry.
And this is how old it is. It used storyboard, so I had to go find the storyboard because that's been purged now from recent dailies. And I've got to put it into Graphics 1 compatibility. I didn't realize how long it's been since I dealt with this thing. Holy cow.
Do you have any
Graphics 1 compatibility? Is that in config or in build settings? I don't remember.
Config, right?
We were talking about
it's been so long since I said it.
Unique input schemes. You probably missed the whole question, Charles.
I did.
So, for those who didn't hear the question, see, I asked it just about the moment you went. Oh, I'm looking at the camera like you can see me. You had we caught a picture of you with your mouth open. I thought maybe you were thinking really hard for a minute there, and then you dropped off. But
yeah.
The question was in summary was how much do you feel basically that having touch as your only input limits you on your creation of games and your ability to create games or to express mechanics, because you can only do a certain amount of complicated, or you can only make your input so complicated before your users are like, I don't know how to do that anymore. And then Jason was saying, and I'll let Jason reiterate the game that he was working on.
Yeah. Oh, sorry. Yeah. So I was pretty proud of a couple of years ago. I worked on started prototyping something that I hope to revisit someday, which was a sort of a clone or based on, inspired by, whatever you want to say, an old Mac game called Harry the Handsome Executive, which was you were a guy in a swivel chair. It was like a top-down, and I think I had keyboard control or maybe mouse control back in the day. And so I experimented for a little while of, okay, how do I best do this? Do I use the accelerometer? I think it started with accelerometer. And what do I do? And I eventually came up with what I thought was a pretty clever implementation where so it's single touch. You touch anywhere on the screen, and it places an invisible dot that is a physics object. So it's invisible, it's got physics, and it's got a touch joint to your finger. So then you drag your finger and release, and depending on the horizontal movement on it, that affects your swivel. So you're going to swivel one direction or the other based on how hard you do that. If you throw your finger up, that's like kicking your feet out and pushing them backwards. And if you go forward, and you have to go fast to go forward, it's like he's inching with his feet forward. And I thought it worked pretty well. And I thought it was something that, in my mind, felt at home on a mobile device. Like it just sort of worked.
So let me ask you a question.
Okay.
Got it to that point, you know how to use it.
Yep.
Now, did you just go here and put it in somebody's hands and go, all right, play?
It never got to that point.
Okay. I'm not deriding this. What I'm really trying to say is yes. I mean, that sounds like a really cool input scheme, and it sounds like a very interesting bit of coding and a good idea. But my frustration is that sometimes you go through a lot of trouble to do this, and it seems natural to you, and then you give it to somebody, they're like, they got no clue.
Yeah.
And then you're stuck with the problem of, okay, let's see, I need them to get into this game in 30 seconds, but I need to somehow explain this to them. How am I going to do that?
Yeah.
Without being there.
No, this looks terrible because I also built in, at the time, a map editor. So you started with an all grass, and you could put different types of floor tiles down that would have different speed variants. But do you see my mouse on this? Does that show up?
Yes.
So you can see I'm clicking, and then I'm throwing it that way, and he spins. If I go like that, he kicks backwards. So you can sort of, you go like this. And he's not animated. You got to sort of pull him down to inch him forward. You can go like that and spin him around. And so I think the idea would be that, there'd be a map, and the idea would be speed runs, right? So without hitting the walls, without encountering any obstacles. And I wanted to build in a map editor so that you could build your own levels, send them to friends. Right now he's just running around on grass. I don't know. I may revisit that someday.
Someday? I expect to see this released next week.
I have so many things that I need to release.
I got a whole pile of someday projects.
Yeah, I know.
That's like a quarter of my hard drive.
So Ed, are you saying that? I mean, you started this whole thing out with controllers and stuff. So
yeah. Well, I was saying is basically there's games that I want to make, but I feel like you're really limited in your ability to control input. How do you say this? You have a very limited time to get somebody to want to play your game for more than a few seconds.
Yeah.
You grab them in the first 30 seconds, you're done.
Mm.
But if you got to spend the first 30 seconds or a minute and a half going, okay, swipe up, swipe left, do this, do that, and it's a lot of work to make all these help screens, you're kind of hosed. That's why part of me has always missed the keyboard, where it's just like people know how to use a keyboard. What's odd? They know what that is.
Well, but you say that though. But if Clash of Clans had never given me like a tutorial to play the game, I don't know that I would have actually still been playing it today.
There was a great article today on Gamasutra about this. I'm posting a link now.
You're saying if they had not or had?
If they had not provided me with some sort of tutorial, right? Because it's not a complex game once you understand it, but there are a lot of moving pieces, right? So you kind of have to. It's not a one-touch, one-tap experience. So
the real answer here is I have to bite the bullet and just get good at making tutorials.
Well, I think if the interface is intuitive after you understand how to use it, then yeah, it just requires a little bit of prompting, and then once the person kind of gets the concept, they can go, oh, okay, I see what's going on. Where I think people get in trouble is when they try to make overly complex interfaces, right, that people can't remember all the combinations for. I've seen some interfaces that I'm like, okay, so swipe left, swipe right, that makes sense, swipe up, swipe down, okay, that, push and hold, I mean, those types of things, like intuitive sort of like, oh, okay. And even if somebody doesn't get that right away, it's just because they don't have the same they don't have the same idea that that you have in your head, but once they get it, they kind of go, oh, okay, But I've seen some interfaces though that they're like, swipe left when you're on this type of page, or and then swipe right on this other type of page, and you have to remember all these rules. And Jason, you're making popcorn again.
I don't know what's going on. I've got a air conditioner in the background.
Yeah, I don't know what it is either, but it's definitely when you mute it, it goes away. Anyway, so like I'm saying, whenever there's these complicated rules that you have to remember, I think that's when it gets to be a problem. But as far as having multiple things that you can do with an interface, like it just.
Well, forget about buttons. I'm not talking about things you can see and go, yeah, I need to remember to click that.
Mm-hmm.
What I'm talking about stuff is like things where there's no no visual cue. You just got to know that, like for example, Jason's game: swipe up, swipe right, do this quickly.
But in those instances, you would have a little, maybe something pulses or something, right? Maybe you have a.
Well, I'm a fan of designing level structure so that so you don't get everything all at once. You design, and there's been some talk now with this Mario Maker game that came out, which I have not played. I don't have a Wii U, but that the elegance of things like Level 1-1 in Super Mario Brothers is that it's designed so well to just intuitively teach you the rules of the world that you're in. I think Hoppico, to go with the Corona example, which is a game that's having a lot of success this week, builds their levels out so that it gets progressively harder. You don't need to know everything at the beginning. To go to a PC game example, I think something like Half-Life, which it starts you off on a train. You've got this tiny little thing, but you're figuring out, okay, well, this is how I move here, this is how I do that. It doesn't drop you right into the action. I think I don't know that was so much a control thing as much as it was a narrative choice, but I think it all when you can get those things to fit together, I think it's if you can ease the player into it, I think that's a great solution.
Even some of the big console games, like you're saying, right? Even today, they still have to do that, where they have to. There's a training.
I'm still hearing bite the bullet.
Yeah, well, I think so. Maybe if that's what you want to say. Yeah, I think so. Now,
all I want to say to that is yes, probably have to bite the bullet.
Kind of, but I think if you think of think of it more of level design and less of tutorial writing.
Yeah, but it's not, because oftentimes, here's the thing. I hear what you're saying.
But this glass is half empty.
A tutorial, it's an extra level you got to make, and then you got to be like, I got to turn off all these other things that they can normally do because I'm trying to keep them doing this one thing. It's like when they have the tutorial that says swipe up. Whenever I see those tutorials, I'm like, I'm going to do everything else but swipe up, just to see if the person who made this game has limited me just so I do the tutorial.
You've got to read that Gama Sutra article I linked to, because I think it addresses a lot of what you're talking about.
Okay. Well, let me ask you this, Ed, because I think this is I think this is the real crux of the issue, is that if you knew that once you explained the controls to somebody, that they could just, after that, they could just sort of intuitively get it and move forward and enjoy the game, then would you be more apt to invest the time to create that tutorial or create that training level? Is it the fact that you just don't know on the other side if it's going to be worth your time to do that? Is that what's the part that's kind of?
It's partly that. It's a lot of work, and so I don't want to do it if I feel like there's a risk that I did all that work for. Because there's a lot of work to make a game mechanic and to get the game all set up. And I feel like oftentimes I get to the point where I'm like, okay, this is really working now. Now I got to go break it so I can put the tutorial in. And that's going to be a lot of work, and that's going to possibly introduce bugs. And so I hear what you're saying, right? I mean, it's always the same question we always have in front of us, which is, am I going to be successful with this? If we always knew that this would be successful, then none of these questions would make any difference. We would do it, right? Whatever it was that was giving us trouble or pause would be forget it because we know we're going to be successful.
So maybe then two things. Maybe the game. Maybe the overall app needs to be there's a game within a game, right? So there's the game, the main core, the big piece, but then there's a game that you play before you get to the game, and somehow you need to be able.
You're talking like the micro levels thing, I think, like Jason was saying.
Well, but what I'm saying though is you develop the game so that it can be hooked into, so that when you almost like you're saying like a level, just make it to where it's just a level, and on the first level, you can only do certain things, and then after that, the whole world opens up, and you can do all these other things. But
I hear what you're saying, but man, that like really complicates. Because imagine if you laid out your whole.
I still see your mouth moving, but I don't like the words you're coming out with.
But no, I mean, I think it's about if it's done right, it doesn't feel like a tutorial. I mean, it's still a lot of work. You're right about that. But I think about level 1-1 in Super Mario Brothers. As a kid, I never thought of that as a tutorial level. I just thought of it as a level, and it was short. But it just very organically introduces you to everything that you needed. Here's how you jump. The placement of the characters, is forgiving in a way that sort of introduces you to the concept of it. Here's a pipe you can drop down. I don't know.
Yeah, I don't know how you get to that point where you're like, where you think this game is it. This game is going to be like, this is my masterpiece, right? But when I look at Laser Dog and I look at Hapiko, okay, I'm going to use them again as an example. They have definitely gone above and beyond what is required in order to publish a game. Yeah. They put out a site, and they've got music, and they've got wallpapers, and they've got, you know what I mean, like. There's definitely the mechanical pieces to creating a game, and then there's just like they've really gone above and beyond, and I don't think that I mean I just can't imagine that they would get hung up at some point saying, well, the tutorial level is really hard.
No, exactly. No, they wouldn't, but they're on a completely different investment schedule, right? I mean, they invested a year on their game, or like a little bit less than a year, right?
Yeah, I don't remember exactly. I have to go back and watch the something like 9 months or something. Yeah.
They were like, okay, we had a game, it was successful, which helped. I think now I'm talking for them here, so if they want to tell me that I'm wrong, that's fine. But the way I understand it is they had a loan, and it was successful, and that helped keep them going to make their next game. It's all about having something.
Momentum.
It's not having money in the bank to be able to take that risk. So, like for me, the reason I asked this question is because I'm to the point where I cannot afford any kind of long development cycle at all.
Mm.
There's no risk left that I can take. It's either all risk or no risk. I either got to go all in and do like they're doing and spend a long time on one thing and just hope to God that it works, or I got to do a bunch of small things.
Yeah.
And then as soon as you get into that, I got to do a bunch of small things. If Eric were here, he'd be like, "Hey, Route 1, Route A, take Route A." So Route B. Eric's probably never going to see this episode, but if he does, he can talk to me later. On the short cycles, you're like, I cannot afford anything that costs time. I got to just boom, 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 boom.
Yeah.
But Eric posted a tweet this week, or within the last week, saying, I think he's grown, not frustrated, but I think he's anxious for a change from the long game. And he was like, I got to do some rapid development soon. Just get some stuff out the door. Fast.
There's that too, yeah. There's the status. That's the other thing I didn't say. Right. There's the satisfaction of getting something done within your lifetime. It feels like, because you work. I don't know about you guys, but for me, all the pleasure really comes in like the first part of the game development. And so if a game starts to like drag on and on and on, it becomes extremely tedious. Is a nice way to put it.
Yeah. But I will say, going back to the Hapiko guys, were you guys in the beta for that?
Yeah.
So they had, I feel, months ago, a shippable product in that beta.
Yeah, without a doubt.
It bears almost no resemblance to, it does, the mechanics are there, but they iterated and churned something superior and vastly larger out of, their beta process was extremely fruitful, I think, in terms of the product that they released was a definite evolution of what they released in their first beta. But their first beta was a good game. Like, could have done well on the App Store. Could have still achieved, a feature or an editor's choice. But I think it paid dividends, the work they did on it.
I think that when I agree entirely, because I kept thinking the whole time during the beta, I was like, well, what else is there to do? Right? I mean, it was a shippable, playable game. Having played the released game now, I really agree. I think I saw a tweet or something about satisfyingly frustrating or something like that. I mean, it's like they put an element of frustration in the game that actually makes it a little harder to play, but makes it even more challenging, right?
Oh, so but when you get in the zone, and you get 5 check marks in a row, it's awesome.
Yeah, right. Exactly. And that's the part I think they took it. It was shippable before. It was fine before, but I think they managed to eke out that last little fine tune that made it even more fun to play. Which is
in addition to all the polishing they did on everything else, they polished the gameplay up.
Yeah.
That's a game too. I think that I think it would be really hard to put together in a way that would be user friendly. But if they put a level editor in that, if they made a way for you to create your own levels and send those out and make view community levels, because they're small in scope, it could be cool. And who knows? Maybe it'll be successful enough that there's an incentive for that.
It's certainly not. To Ed's point, it's certainly not going to be a game that's like just. It needs a tutorial level, right? It needs a little bit of an instruction, a little bit of prompting to kind of, you kind of get it intuitively, but they kind of lead you along a little bit in the beginning, and I think that's important. You're not going to be able to do that without it. That answer your question, Ed?
Yeah. I know the answers to these questions. It's really me kind of moaning a little bit, crying. There's a word that starts with B I wanted to use, but I won't use it. Bemoaning, let's put it that way, about how hard life is, and I've got to make tutorials. When. So, it's the days of games where the mechanics are so drop dead simple are pretty much gone. I mean, they're not gone because we just had Pop the Lock here, but
Well, I think there's different categories.
Some kind of complex mechanic, and you got to explain it.
Yeah, what's really crazy about that, I think, is games became more and more complex to give them a sense of value, right? Somehow they became, I don't know if people got bored or what, right? But now it seems like there is a resurgence to just very simple games. But the games that have always been the most fun for me have always been the simple games. They're always the ones that are just sort of like, they're just fun to play, right? You're playing for score, you're playing for that frustration factor or whatever.
Have you played Mega Man yet, Charles?
No, I knew you were going to ask me about that. No, I have not, and I thank you very much. You gifted me the game, and it's 20 feet that way.
Yeah, but
But I am gonna play it, and it was on Xbox One, so I got to kick my son off of his Xbox One and play it. I told him, I said, no, we got to play Mega Man because it's a classic.
The old man's got to get up to speed.
Right. So he's totally on board. Hey, speaking of which, not to shift gears too much, but have you guys played Ingress? So it's like.
No?
It's a mobile game. It's a mixed reality type game. You sign in with Google Plus,
Like
which
it
is
uses your
weird.
camera and places things on top of what it's
It's kind of a it's a I think the previous term was augmented reality, but now Microsoft wants you to use mixed reality. But it's a kind of an augmented reality game, and you wind up it's like geocaching meets Watch Dogs. Did you ever see the console game Watch Dogs, where you're walking around
I
and
never played it, but I remember it launched with a big splash.
yeah, so you're in that game, you're walking around and with your cell phone you hack into systems, you hack other people's cell phones, you collect intel, and you run around the city doing stuff, right? And with this game with Ingress, it's it's um, it's kind of like geolocation in that wherever you are, you can fire up the app and you can look around, and it will figure out where you are, and it'll show you all these data points where people have either captured a base or dropped a dropped a piece of energy or whatever, right? And then you're supposed to either collect things and power up, or you're supposed to attack the I think it's the green team. There's a blue team and there's a green team, and you can attack the opposing team, and then they can defend themselves and all this stuff. And it just depends on where you are. Like there's apparently there's a whole bunch of people playing in our neighborhood that I had no idea. If you can go, if you go across town, there's people there. It's just a kind of a cool sort of augmented reality sort of game, and they've done an amazing job of integrating social media and all these other pieces. So like one of the very first things that you do when you sign up for the game is it gives you a status report, and it talks about all these things that have happened all around the world. And at first they're talking about these waves that have been executed by these different teams, and how they pushed the resistance has pushed back, and there's all this stuff, and you think, I mean, they're reporting it like it's real, but it's just this game, and it's a weird mix. It's a really weird mix, and but it's a lot of fun. My son actually, he's here lately. He's wound up playing it when he goes and walks the dog, and he's like pulled his phone out and he's sort of rediscovering the neighborhood based on this augmented reality game. It's kind of interesting.
Cool. No, I mean, I like the move of, encouraging real-world exploration and real-world play. I mean, this is not the same thing, but last night I actually, for my job, they had this team-building exercise. They went to one of these escape the room things. I think they were inspired by sort of these video games, if you ever played The Room, or, the notion of having to find a way to get out of the room you're in. But it's like they build a puzzle. They give you an hour, and they just place you and your friends in here. And you've got to sort of eventually make your way to finding a key that unlocks the door. And it was really fun. And I think if you can find a way to leverage, to bridge that, you're using your mobile device, you're doing something with that, because the technology part of it's cool, but you're also playing with the real physical world. I think that's sort of cool.
Yeah, exactly. I don't. I don't think that's taken advantage of enough. Blending.
It's what the Pokemon people are hoping to do now, right? This is what the new Pokemon game, I guess, is going to be. Again, the geotagging, and I think it's about, I don't really know. I don't play Pokemon, but I have a nephew, I think I've mentioned before, who's super into it. So I'm sure he'll talk my ear off about it, and my eyes will glaze over, and I'll go, oh, yeah.
I think, yeah, anytime that they can add in an element of the physical world, I don't know, just it makes things more interesting. Because imagine it from a kid's perspective, right? They all have cell phones in their pocket. They've got a game that they've downloaded and they played, right? And they're at some event, maybe they're at the parents' friend's house or out to dinner or whatever, right? And they're not really interested in what's going on, so they pull out their phone and they play this game, but they played this game like a million times, so it's kind of like, it's just sort of repetitive. But imagine that same game changes everywhere you go, right? So it's the same basic rules, but it's a completely different experience when you go someplace else, right? So now you're at the restaurant and you're like, oh man, the green team's right over there, right? All the green team people are here, you know.
It's interesting. I just downloaded it. I haven't started playing it yet, though.
I think it engages your imagination in a really good way, in a
Right.
way that kids have always done. I mean, I'm thinking. I mean, when I was a kid, we were between houses. We had just moved to a new city, and I guess my parents hadn't closed on the new house yet. So for a week, we lived in a hotel. And I remember my cousins came over and visited us, and it was like we'd invent these crazy stories about what we were spies, and we were, this is a hotel with like a lobby and elevators, and it turned into this great big adventure. And I think kids do that naturally, engage that part of their brain.
Yeah. Well, and when you're allowed to fill in some of the gaps on your own, I think it's good, right? I mean, some of the best science fiction movies are the ones where they don't show you the monster, right? Because then you're like, oh, you can fill in the gaps with your own imagination. So it's cool. And Watch Dogs, for all its hype, Watch Dogs was an interesting concept, but it turned into just a Grand Theft Auto, reskinned Grand Theft Auto after a while because you wound up driving around the city, right? So you would pull people out of their cars and you would take their car and then you would drive around the city and then you would hack things and it just became this, eventually you were just like, how fast can I get across the city, or how fast can I complete something that I've got a checkpoint for.
I want to throw out a topic. I learned of a tool called Slicey, and I found it through the Thimbleweed Park blog. So Thimbleweed Park is, I'm always harping on the same developers and the same style of games, but it's the Kickstartered under development game by Ron Gilbert and Gary Winnick, the Maniac Mansion guys. So they have a blog that they do, and they do these. It's sort of cool. They record their weekly stand-up meetings and release that as a podcast. They're short, like 20 minutes, and it's just them sort of talking about what they've been working on. But I find it really interesting as a aspiring developer, I suppose. But anyways, they released this. Let me see if I can find the blog post about it. And so I don't know if you guys do this. I work in Photoshop a lot of times. I'll lay out my scenes in Photoshop, and I'll do it with layers. And I use the export layers to files function, and it throws out files. But they're always named weird. And then I have a tool I use that can sort of rename things and do all that. And then I import them into Texture Packer and put out a sprite sheet. Well, Slicey, you just drag your PSD file onto Slicey, and you name your layers as the PNG files that you want, and it just puts them right out and gives you all those files named exactly as you want. You can even set up if you want them trimmed a specific way. You can use special layers that act like masks essentially, and it seems like a really cool thing. One sec, I'm going to go off camera here for a sec.
Okay. You're talking to a cheap guy, a Paint Shop Pro user.
Oh, I thought you were talking about the price of Slicey. I was like, you wouldn't pay for Slicey?
Be there too, but. And then he was gone.
I definitely like that idea of being able to speed up things from a workflow standpoint. Anything that's like that. I mean, even you were talking about renaming files. I'd have to find it, but I have an application that I have used in the past that will automatically go through and rename all the files in a folder. And especially if all you want to do is do like consecutive sequential file names, right? You want to make it something intuitive, and then you just want to put a number on the end of it. And
is this Name Mangler? I use Name Mangler.
Yeah, Name Mangler. Yeah, I love that app.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I tell you.
Because it'll just blow through a whole directory full of stuff, and you're like.
I even paid. They did a major version upgrade that required you to pay again, and I did. I paid twice for it. I didn't mind. That's how useful it is, and I'm cheap.
I think that if you any other any other software, if you go from 1 to 2, right, or 2 to 3 major versions, you're expected to pay, right? You can keep version 1 and use version 1 for as long as you want, but once we get to version 2, you need to pay again. And apps don't get that, right? The app stores don't provide for that, and it's not that the app developers don't get it; it's that they don't get the opportunity. And I think that's a big flaw in the app stores because software is not free. It's not you.
You basically got to release a new app.
Well, the developer has to eat.
Yeah, I hear what you're saying. Right.
So you can't. I mean, you can't. Some people push it back against cloud services and subscription services and all that stuff, and I get that. Okay, but if you want the company to survive, the company has to sell things, right? And the same thing with the developer. They can't just make updates to software forever without getting paid. And there's only so many people.
To be a cranky contrarian, as much as I love it and as much as I paid for Name Mangler 3 over Name Mangler 2, I don't know that it was really that different. It had Yosemite compatibility. And it's useful enough and cheap enough, whatever, I'm happy to do it. I don't know that it was a massive overhaul in terms of functionality, but,
Yeah, but you could have kept using the other version, though, right? Couldn't you?
I don't know that it worked with Yosemite or didn't work as well, I think. It was part of the... I mean, they removed the old version from the Mac App Store, which is how I got it. Although I saw your link, it looks like you can buy it directly from them, which maybe they would have I do.
So you're saying that they provided support for you for Yosemite, but overall there wasn't a big feature change. So you felt like, maybe why did I?
It might have been an issue too, where I don't even know if maybe I was setting up a new machine or something, and I wanted to re-download it from the Mac App Store, and I don't know that you could because I think they deprecated it. And even out of your history, I'm not sure. Maybe you could, and I can't remember. At any rate, I was happy to upgrade. It's fine. It's cheap. It's not an expensive.
But, it's a great story, Jason.
But it sounds like it's okay. Did I hear this wrong? So you had a tool that worked under an older version of OS X. Then you've got newer OS X. The old tool did not work on the new version?
I mean, I don't think it would crash upon opening, but there was something that it didn't. I can't remember. This goes back.
So it maybe worked, but it wasn't all that great of an experience, or it wasn't reliable.
Yes, so I got the impression that the new version was not so much feature additions. I think they tweaked some things. I think they,
It sounds like basically what they did was put in the effort to. We got Charles twice now. They put in the effort to make sure that it worked for people on the latest and greatest. So that's a lot of work. So it sounds like your choice is exactly correct because they put in investment to give you something good. And
I'm coming off a lot crankier than I want to here. They're good guys and they make a good product. So
yeah, I don't have a problem with that either. I'm like what you said about yourself. I'm pretty cheap, so it takes a lot to convince me to upgrade. But if it's a tool I use all the time and I'm kind of dependent upon, then that's a no-brainer. Then I'll do it.
So hold on here. I'm going to show my screen here.
Charles, you've cloned yourself.
I did. I'm going to show my screen. So here's Slicey. Okay, can you guys see this when I hit the present to everyone button? Which I think it just pushes to you guys. Can you hear me? All right. You're both okay. You both muted.
we can see it and hear you all right.
Okay,
and
so
your other self hung up on you.
Yeah, I see that. So they have these examples. Let me grab one of these examples. They have these Slicey examples.
Just going back to tutorials.
I'm just gonna. So what's it doing? I'm trying to understand what Slicey's doing for me here. Jason, maybe you know better.
It's going to automatically pull either layers or layer groups and save them as PNG files. So I do this a lot. I'll work with something. I mean, depending on I worked on a game that had cards, virtual cards, and they were done as images, and they were all the same size. So you'd use a single Photoshop document and just use layers. And yeah, you can go in and use a macro and export your layers as files, but the naming is not so great when you do that. There's some work done on the backside, but this, you just throw it in and it pops out, you know, separate files named the same exactly how you name the layers or the layer groups. Which I think if you use custom layer comps or layer groups, I think that could be really useful as well.
So so it's really I mean, again, these examples are kind of simple, but it's the power of layers.
Yeah, I
Right.
mean, if you go to the, you know what, they actually on the Thimbleweed Park blog, he goes into some detail about the usefulness of it, and he actually provides a Photoshop document from their workflow.
Did you put the?
Yeah.
I lost it.
I'll put it back in here.
It sounds like a ton of saving. I don't know about you, Jason, but I do exactly what you do. You know, like you make 10 characters, each one's on a separate layer. You got them. You think you got them all right, and then you go one by one. You're like, hide these, save, get the right name. Hide this, save, get the right name. And then every once in a while you go, save, done, close. Oh gosh, I just killed the whole thing.
Well, and my understanding with Slicey, and I have not really had an opportunity to test drive it properly, is that it can work almost. You can keep it open. Make a change to your Photoshop document, and it will refresh those images for you.
That's what I was going to say. Is you go through that exercise for 20 characters, you get them into your game. You go, oh, it's off by 2 pixels to the left. Now I got to go do it all again.
Yeah.
Whereas with Spicy, you'd be like, done.
Yeah. So Charles, if you scroll to the last paragraph there is it's just a text link, but it says you can download this here, and you can download that Photoshop document. Which I am a big fan. I mean, I'm a big fan of Ron Gilbert and his work. But I think this blog is really, I think, if you're into game development, particularly if you're into adventure games, really they're writing. There's something new every week, and it's short. It doesn't take a lot of time, but really insightful. I mean, really interesting. And I think I mentioned this before. One of his key team members is David Fox, who has done some Corona development as well. He did the Electric Eggplant. So what did they do? They did the Middle School Confidential series a couple of years ago.
Yeah. That's a kind of an interactive. I want to say comic book, but an interactive book.
But he's an old school LucasArts guy. I think he was Zach McCracken was his. He was one of the writers for that, I think, maybe.
Oh, I just realized you can't see all you see is the webpage. You don't see my screen. Well, fiddle.
Charles, the master of screen sharing.
I am the master of screen sharing. I realized y'all were looking at the you were looking at the blog post that whole time.
Except for share a screen.
Yeah.
I love that. Oh.
Let's see if I did it right this time. Nope, I'm still just sharing one window. Oh well.
Yeah, you got to share your whole desktop. I've had a problem with Google Hangouts where it doesn't do some windows.
Let's just say screen 2. How about that? Screen 2. Yeah, there we go. Now it's coming up. So before I had was this radio station, and I just took it and dropped it on. Where'd it go? Yep, this is user issue. Oh, here we go. It's over there now. This newfangled things. Yeah, so just drop it on there, which is I love that kind of interface where you don't have to really do anything. You would drop it on, and then it gives you all this. Which, if you push the space bar, will give you the preview like you normally expect.
And then this is just part of his workflow, so then he drops these into Texture Packer.
Yeah, which, I mean, if you look, he's got, what is this? There's a door or something. There's some grass or forefront kind of stuff, and then he's got, down here, he's got some background stuff, so sky.
Hey, Jason made me think of a question. I don't want to. We can keep your screen up and everything, so we don't
Yeah.
stop this. But speaking of Texture Packer, Jason, did you see that forums question about Texture Packer today or yesterday?
I feel like I saw one and I'm not remembering the details on it.
Okay, I'll give you the essence of it. The essence of it is consider that you've got a folder, and within that folder you've got two subfolders, and each subfolder has got a texture in it called 1, a texture in it called 2, 3, 4, and then what you want to do is drag and drop the whole folder with the subfolders onto Texture Packer, and when you do that, then Texture Packer loses its mind and says, no, 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 you've got two textures with the same name, forget about it.
Mm.
Have you ever dealt with that, and do you know how to solve that?
No, I tend to keep. I don't use subfolders. I do. In the way I organize my stuff is I have a separate folder for each sprite sheet,
Mm-hmm.
and then just flat inside of that I throw all my textures that are going to go into a sprite sheet into that folder. Now I think somebody suggested, and it could be this is what the person was doing, that they were dragging those files as opposed to dragging the whole folder in. So if you drag the whole folder in, that's a way better way to do it because it automatically updates itself if you drop
Yeah,
new images into the folder.
I
You know
just
what?
gave you my example the way I would do it, which might actually be the right way.
I'm going to test this theory right now. I'm going to set
I
up a
didn't have something
folder,
available to me to try it.
and we're going to mess around with
We're going to
this.
find out if that works. So a folder with two subfolders, and each of those folders is basically just a duplicate of the other one. Well, you're going to get nabbed, though, because Texture Packer is smart. It can identify two textures that are exactly the same.
That is true. So I'm going to make two different images. So different images, same
different
name.
images,
All
but
right.
in different folders, but with the same name for the two files.
Gotcha. So.
Yeah. Texture Packer is too smart for you, buddy.
It is really smart. It's a fantastic tool.
Yeah, it is a good tool.
It's another one of those ones that's just so well worth.
It was good when it first came out, but it totally ramped up after like the second or third release.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, and I mean now I think it you can drop like Flash documents onto it, and it'll slice them up into images. It's awesome.
They probably saw an opening when that Flash exporter went away.
I still have Animo on my machine, but you can't download it anymore.
Yeah,
So
and getting that to work in Graphics 2.0 is sometimes a challenge.
I used it for something, and oh man, there's an echo. But yeah, it took a lot of, and the sprite engine had received an overhaul. So
you actually, I had a project like that. I had to go modify the sprite. I had to modify the now open source sprite module to make it work. To bring it up to 2.0. So, anyways.
All right. Sorry, this is taking.
Getting ready to show? Are you about to show us that worked, or you need a minute to think while you're doing it?
I can't walk and chew bubblegum at the same time here.
While he's doing that, I put a link in the chat. Ed, you might have seen this already. It's possible to simulate or tap into, I guess you could say, the 3D Force Touch. Did you see that?
No. Well, I know that there's been some discussion about how to get at it.
Yeah, so Brent posted some code this afternoon, whatever, and it talks about a way to actually support 3D touch. And apparently all the pieces are there. It's just, you have to set up your event listeners and your touch listeners or whatever, and then you can kind of simulate it. So
these guys should have watched our Hangout, man. We talked about dealing with this sub-pixel business before.
Yeah. So maybe down the road there'll be an API or a method call, to simulate this, so you don't have to do all this code. But yeah, I'll put a link in the show notes though. But I thought it was pretty cool. I was like, well,
one of the other discussions actually that let me see if I got this wrong. So we've got 3D Touch, which is iOS, but some Android devices also have a equivalent concept of how hard you press. And that's been around for a while. And there's already a way in Corona to deal with that for those Android devices. That is, it's not the touch event, it's some other event.
Right. Right.
Yeah. So I haven't gotten a chance to read all this yet, but
Yeah, because it starts out with like some Android devices, the touch on iPhone 6s sends moved events of 0 pixels, even if you don't move. And then that's somebody starts out their question asking about that, and then Brent goes back and forth with them for a little while, and then at the end, or at least the end of is according right now, is he posts some code and says here's how you would do something like that, and it's 26 lines of code, so it's not too bad. It's a copy paste solution, but it would be great if it were like a method call.
All right, so let's do an experiment. Am I screen sharing? Are you guys seeing this?
Yes.
I'm going to have to read through the rest of that, but agreed.
All right,
We should
so
make
I've
a
got
super collection plugin that's just got all these extra solutions and go here, solution 21 plugin, do it, take it.
Oh yeah, it could be a plugin. I guess that's true too.
Or like
Alright.
a modular download or something. Go on. Okay, well I'm looking.
So I've got a folder here called image sheets. Inside it I've got sub1 with a says domo.png. Here's that little guy. Sub2 we've got domo.png. He's flipped around and he's purple. So different images named the same in 2 different subfolders. We're gonna create a project.
2 different colors?
Yeah.
Okay, good, because it would figure out the...
Yeah, they are the same dimensions, but I flipped it horizontally and I changed the color.
I think it would figure it out if you had just flipped it, but it was otherwise...
Oh, you might be right, yeah. So I'm going to drop in image sheets. There we go. Give me a 1024 by 2048 guy.
Yeah, so
Got
export it.
sub1, sub2. Let's tell it. I want to put it out to the desktop.
It says it's going to be a compound name.
Test.lua. Test.png. Let's publish it.
I'll say $1.
Okay, test.png. There we go. We've got them there.
Open the Lua file. Voice text.
Lua. We have got
It'll
sub1 / domo, sub2 / domo.
See, compound names. And
Now, so what the user in the forums was most likely doing is not using this smart folder thing. They were probably going, okay, I'm dragging this guy in here, and okay, I'm dragging this guy in here, and then I get red arrows, red exclamation points, and it's telling me that's no good.
Dude, you should just answer that and go, watch the Hangout at time 1 hour 35 minutes.
I definitely should.
Yeah.
Because but I think somebody might have mentioned this already though, that if you just drag the folder in, it'll take care of that.
Yeah, but you've got a video now, man, and it's free. Charles is doing all the heavy lifting. Charles's heavy lifting video.
There we go.
Yeah.
All right.
Okay, so we got 25 minutes left, and I want to broach a topic, but if it's too complicated, we can say no and not talk about it. It's related to our favorite topic of all time, which is monetization.
Broach it.
Broaching away. Okay, so here's the deal. Nowadays, lucky us, we've got Corona that does mobile, and we've got Corona Desktop, which kind of opens up some interesting scenarios. One of the scenarios that it opens is you can do a mobile app, and then you can do a desktop version that has like more or different features. And in my case, the different features are the mobile app is the consumer, it's the client. It plays the content, consumes the content. But if you want to provide a way for people to create more content for your gamer app, you could use a desktop version. Then you can give them, typing and keyboard and shortcuts and all that, and a real full-screen editor and the whole thing. And so I'm working on something where it's client, consumer on the mobile, and the desktop is a rudimentary but more advanced editor than what you could do on, say, an iPad. But I want to control, and then all of this is connected via a backend, a Coronian backend, with a server, with a database. So the editor then you can log in with your account, you create an account on your device, credentials and all that stuff, and then you can log in from any other client or from the desktop under the same account, and then access your files. So this is all cool, but as soon as there's a server, you got to think about, okay, if I got 1 million people using that, that's going to cost me a lot of money, so I got to monetize that. So here's my idea on monetizing. This is long intro, but here's where I was going. So I'm thinking about monetizing it like this. I'm thinking about making the client free, but then in-app purchasing like tokens or something like that to consume more content. And then you can create content on the desktop, but you have to have an account that you created with the mobile one. You can't create the account from your desktop. You cannot consume from the desktop, but you can create, and creators can get more credits to a certain degree. So like a certain amount of extra tokens for
So
creating.
providing an incentive for them to go that extra step.
Yeah, right. So providing an incentive for them to go the extra step. But the difficulty with this for me is there will always be cheaters. So you got to prevent people from going, I made a one-page content or a one-level content, boom, give me my credits. So I'm thinking I got to take this one step further. What I got to do is allow people, and there's other issues that this would also solve. I need to allow people to upload content, and they will get the credit only after people have voted on it. Like people, I can't remember what the word is, but there's a word for it, for where people go and review it before it's like they get 10 upvotes and no negative votes, and then it's allowed to be content, visible to everybody. And I'm just, when you hear me say that, are there like any holes in that? Can you think of anything that I'm not thinking of, or?
Part of me wonders if it's a big enough problem to be worth the effort on your part in terms of people gaming the system to get those credits. There will be some people that do, but are there enough that it's worth the effort on your part to fight it?
If it were just about the credits, it might not be a big enough problem. But the other problem is I don't want people creating content that is inappropriate. So I need people who are I can't do it all myself. If I only get 10 customers, I can do it all myself.
Yeah.
But if there's 1 million people doing it and there's 5,000 people creating content, then there's no way in
you get like a peer review system.
Curated content.
Yeah, peer-rated content.
Yeah.
So it solves two problems for me. It keeps people from trying to game the system by going, cash in early for the chips, and it gives the peer rating, so I don't get people putting like pornos out there or whatever, porno equivalent for whatever the thing is, which I'm not exactly elaborating on.
Is this an app or a game?
It's a between.
Okay.
It's a between. It's a between an app and a game. Yeah. It's a I don't know how to describe it. I don't have the elevator talk for it yet.
I mean, I think you could go. You could tell somebody to sign up to be a moderator, to be a content reviewer, and maybe incentivize that. You get.
Then I got thinking that. Then maybe I need to do that.
If you, and I think you can slow it down. They can only review so many levels or whatever in a day, but if they do that, they get tokens. So it sort of gives them a reason to want to. So you lock off that content. So by default, your users are only going to see the approved content, right?
Right.
But you can say, if you want, you can be a moderator, which you can see everything. You're going to see the stuff that hasn't been approved yet. You might see some unsavory or some bad or some fishy content. But that's your job. Your job is to mark that as such. And if you do that, you get first dibs at this user-generated content, and some of it's going to be great. And maybe you throw them some extra tokens.
but you might have to wade through a pile of wieners.
Yeah.
Or whatever the content is. I cut the line there, Charles. I had to say something so people would get what I was saying, but I didn't say the other word. I was thinking, it's like, what's that Penny Arcade?
Mm-hmm.
Where they do the annual cookie contest, and you always get like a bunch of people doing. I don't know if they still do that, but they used to do that, an annual cookie contest where people would have to make their creative cookies, and it's like they always had ding dongs. It's like the #1 category of submissions on their cookies.
Hey man, that's a whole business. I used to live in Philadelphia, and I lived in the historic district of Philadelphia, and I'm not even joking. There was a store called Erotic Cakes.
I like the historic.
Right, just fine.
No, it was like this was down the street from the Liberty Bell, man.
That's hilarious.
So what's your this idea? Give me, tell me something bad that can happen.
So your question is really geared towards the mechanism itself, or the monetization part of it?
The question?
Yeah, I'm not sure if I'm clear as to what we're talking about.
Okay, well, I need to monetize it. There's no question there.
Okay.
So in order to monetize it, the real only way I can think of is to monetize the downloading of consumed content. So on the client side. But at the same time, the only way to make something like this work, I can't create all the content myself. I don't want to. And I really feel like the only way to be really successful is to let other people create content and then share it, because people like to do that. But as soon as you do that, you get into a situation where you've got people creating inappropriate content, and then if you're rewarding them for content, you've got people just trying to game the system. And I want to avoid both of those problems.
Right. So yeah, so I think it would be warranted to have a peer-reviewed or peer-rated system.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I can think of what's back in the day, well, I guess that's a little different because that was actually just sharing of sharing links to resources that were already someplace else. You know what I'm talking about? Can you read my mind?
No, fine. I'm coming up blank. Is that what's going on over there?
The original peer-rated content site. What was the one?
Oh, now you're tickling my brain.
It was like the original one, and it it started the whole trend of sharing links to articles and then people voting them up or voting them down.
Now your brain's getting tickled.
Yes. What was it? What the heck was it called?
Dig? It's like having something on your tongue.
Yeah.
Talking about Dig?
I'm talking about Dig, yeah. Dig was the original. I mean, it's the one that at least popularized, if not invented, that category of.
Is Dig still a thing?
Yeah, and I think they reinvented themselves or whatever, but their heyday is over.
Okay, so let me posit this then. People pay, like I said, to do the downloading and just consume. People get rewarded to create content, but only after it's been peer reviewed. And peer reviewers also get rewarded, but they only get rewarded if the client that they're using to do the reviewing says that they have reviewed a certain amount of the content. Because the content there'll be a quantity of content. It's not like a single page of content. And it's no good to me if everybody just says, yeah, I looked at the first screen, done. This is the greatest thing since sliced bread. Yes, I give it 4 stars and 3-year-old appropriate. Go for it.
Well, I think in those situations, though, I think what we've seen though is that it's not peer reviewed by one person, right? You're looking for signals. You're looking for, it's got to be peer reviewed by 10 people.
Oh yeah, I mean, I'm not. Nothing would get past the gate, but with one person.
Yeah. And you got to keep.
Or potentially super users, people who have done it for a while, who and trust that their opinion is worth more.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's the knowing and trusting part that's hard, though.
Well, it's like you. Like in the early days, it's going to be you. You don't need 10 people to okay something if you've seen it, because you're you.
Yeah.
But once somebody achieves a certain status, maybe they get.
Oh yeah, I can mark them up in my database as a trusted person.
You'd have to. You'd have to, right? Because you'd need your lieutenants, so to speak, to be able to. Because otherwise, you had to build some sort of a sophisticated algorithm that would.
So now we're gamifying the system though, because I can give them like badges and stars and stuff for being
Absolutely.
This is Reddit,
awesome.
right? And this is how Reddit works, right?
Oh yeah, absolutely.
I should go look at that. I'm asking these questions, but there are examples out there of how this works already.
Careful, it can backfire on you, right? This is what happened to the interim CEO of Reddit, right? The moderators revolt and you lose your job.
Oh, well, by which time I hope I don't give a dang anyways.
Right. It's just kick the founder out. See if I care.
Yeah.
As long as I can go sail on my yacht, I'll be okay.
I can shut off the database anytime. You're all out, baby. Ding dongs and ho hos. Goodbye.
Or is this from Coronium backend as well? I know you're a big fan of that.
Yeah, I'm thinking Coronium. I'm also weighing that. I need something that's going to scale well. It's going to be secure.
So maybe just like a SQLite thing, or?
Yeah, I mean, I can literally upload the content as pure text and then some image files.
Mm-hmm.
So there's not going to be like any scripts or anything. It'll be pure JSON encoded tables and then some images at the most.
Okay.
So, and depending on how much work people want to put in, it could be all text or it could be some. They could use their own custom.
I'm totally curious about what the project is.
Yeah.
You piqued my curiosity.
Give me a couple more weeks. I'll give you a preview on the Hangout. I want to get it to a certain level of.
It sounds like Ed, you may have a moderator on your hands.
No, but I'm a fan of wiener art, so
Yeah, well, don't worry.
You don't want to trust my judgment. I'm gonna let all sorts of
personal pictures of wieners that'll get put in there. I'll have to delete off the server. That'll happen.
Yeah, be like, what have I done?
I'll just keep all that content and create a new app for people who really love that stuff. It'll be just a wiener app,
Yeah. Hey, exactly. Niche it down.
The adult version of the app.
Just niche it down.
Oh my god. And then I'll charge money for it too, Yeah. Once you get into the X-rated stuff, you need to charge money. So that's as far out on that limb as I'm willing to go.
As long as the dollars spend.
Yeah, as long as the dollars.
Hey, it's what drives technology forward. It brought us the VHS cassette and the DVD, right?
Yeah.
Wiener art?
No, just.
Some would call it art.
The dollar.
That's how they like to frame it when they get in trouble with the law. It's art, officer.
It's art.
Can you hang it on your wall? I can after I print it out. Okay, we're way out of. We're past the limb that I wanted to stop on. Let's negate that. Okay, that sounds okay. That all sounds about what I was thinking. All right. Yeah.
So in the last few minutes here, I want to talk about this. I want to go back to the beginning of the show. The Google Nexus. Did you see the tablet?
I did not.
I need to put a link. Let me put a link in the
Well,
chat.
is it under their products page? Oh, tablets. There it is.
Let me just I'll put it in there for Jason. So the
have they had a 9-inch one before? I have the 7.
I don't think so. And they here's my not dissatisfaction. What am I trying to say? Disappointment. Here's my disappointment was I watched the event today where they did the announcements and stuff, and they showed this device, this tablet, with a keyboard that snaps onto the front of the device. And I don't know, maybe I'm not looking at the right page or something, but I don't see it on here. What I saw today was something that had this keyboard that I thought they had gotten it right. You know what I mean? Like
I see a case. If you scroll far enough down, there's like a case that shows a key. The magnetically attached, fully responsive keyboard allows you to type at different angles.
Yeah, but the one that I saw today, it actually looked like it was a separate thing, and somehow they had figured out how to make it stick to the tablet. I mean, it was pretty slick looking in the in the release. But now that I'm looking at it on the website, I'm like, well, that just looks like what Apple's got with a smart cover with a keyboard built into it, right? Which I don't think is a real competitor to Surface in terms of form factor.
Because this kind of looks like it's just resting there.
Okay, what do you got there? Yeah, see, it does look. Yeah, see, it's all in the angle. It's all in the angle because what you're showing there, yeah, it totally looks like it's just kind of, well, almost resting, but the way they held it.
I'm sure it's magnetically adhered.
Yeah, the way they held it at the event, though, it looked like it was just like the keyboard and the tablet, and that was it. There was no cover piece to it, right? The keyboard was the cover.
Angles, baby.
Yeah, it was all about the angles. Because I thought, man, I was like, man, they worked that out somehow. That was cool. But now I just see that it's always just a smart cover.
You got a complaint about this, though, besides the fact that it's all about the angles.
Yeah.
They had a Nexus 10 tablet. Why is this one, which is newer, the Nexus 9? Intel did that, and it confused the dickens out of me when they did that they went to the next greatest processor, and it was a lower number, and you're like, no, guys. More newer is always higher. It's not, what are you going to go down to 0 and then you're going to stop making things?
Well, Microsoft skipped 9, so Google's like, we're jumping on the 9 train.
It's our baby. Because I'm sure that there was a Nexus 10 tablet last year. Am I wrong?
I don't know.
Well, see, it's the number is referring to the screen size, less so than to the generation.
Oh, the size of the screen.
Right?
See, there's the Nexus 10.
Because I've got a Nexus 7 and it's got a 7-inch display.
Yeah, that makes sense, sort of. Although I'm still of the era of the 486, 586, 686, and then they went i7. Or like they did the wacko names between. I'm like, what?
The first generation of i3, i5, i7 made total sense. It's like, hey, here's a new thing, and it's I, and that stands for Intel or whatever, and 5 is higher than 3, and 7. But they kept using the same names.
i3, i5, and i7 were their attempt to correct the misstep that came before that.
Which would be what, the Pentium family of stuff?
No, it was the Core and the Core Duo and the whatever, and you're like, what the heck is this, and which one's better?
Yeah, but see, the i3, i5, i7 now, you got to pay really close attention to which generation of it now, right? Because it's like they're just using that same naming convention.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. Because there's the Broadwell and the Haswell and the Huda
and depending on what time of year you're buying, it's not going to be really apparent whether you're getting the new one that just came out or whether you're getting the one from 6 months ago.
Yeah, you can't rely on just the i7 is enough. You need to go look at the exact model number.
Yeah.
Otherwise, you could be wasting your time and money.
I honestly don't know why they don't start. I feel like we should just do what the auto industry does here. Like, I don't know why they don't. It's the iPad 2. They still call it the iPad 2, and then it's the iPad Retina, but then we're just going to call it the iPad. Just call it the 2015 iPad, the 2016 iPad.
Well,
yeah.
The problem is exactly what we're saying, though. Is that within any generation, like the Haswell or Haswell, for example, they've got many, many variants of that.
Yeah.
So they need to do that because they need to upcharge certain customers versus other customers. They want to. It's kind of like the airline industry. They want to be able to charge everybody as much as they can charge them, right? So.
Well, this is the one thing I sort of dislike about Apple in the sense that, I mean, it's a very consumer-friendly thing that they do, but I feel like it's not as gearheady anymore, right? It's obscured. The techie details are more obscured. So if you're into that, it's a little harder than it used to be to sort of know what you're getting. You can't open up a machine anymore and replace. And Apple's not the only one that's doing this. Form factors have gotten so custom. It's not like the days where you just bought yourself an ATX tower and just went to the store and bought a bunch of components and threw them together.
Yeah, but see, but again, I think that harkens back to that conversation we had earlier. Is that putting together your own machine was
my kids are gonna be like, "Oh, Dad."
Yeah, it was a rite of passage, right? It was proving your chops. But now,
I mean,
my kid doesn't. They don't care about putting
could
their own
care
computers
less.
together.
Not
Yeah,
like
they
it's
care
fun.
less. Yeah,
There's
they're
also
just
no
like,
price advantage anymore. I mean, when I was a
The
kid,
other
it was
thing
like
though
I
is,
could get more for my money that way.
yeah, back then
That's true.
it made a big difference. You'd be like, yeah, I overclocked it by 10% and I got a lot more performance out of it.
Yeah.
Nowadays they're like, yeah, 10%, who cares? It's still so fast, it doesn't make a difference.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah. I never got into the overclocking business. I mean, I understood it conceptually, but it was one of those.
I gotta hang up on you, Charles.
Sorry.
No, I never did that
I thought I
either.
was talking to a real technical man.
I know it. See, you took it a step further.
I've never built a machine where I had to take cooling into account. It just wasn't my thing. If I've got to start worrying about putting a cooling system into it, I've already gone farther than I wanted to.
Yeah. Yeah, well, I don't know if you watched any of these videos that they have today, but I mean, people are like putting the heat sinks are like this big, and you got to put them on there, and then you got to strap them down, and they have these latches, and it's just insane. Like,
Well, the graphics cards are massive now, and I think most of that is cooling. I think most of that is heat sinks and fans and all the rest of it. But like, man, oh man.
To me, it's too scary now because now it's like before it was like this is a $300 card or something. And you're like you don't want to mess it up, but
Now it's
if
a $2,000 card.
But yeah, exactly. Now you're messing around with a $3,000 graphics card. I'm like, I'm not. That's too rich for my blood.
No.
I'm too cheap for that. I always wait. Mr. Cheap. That's my moniker for my song. One of those two.
Mr. They call me Mr. Cheap. All right, guys.
Looks like it's 8 o'clock.
Yep. Let's wrap it up. And yeah, so Monday we're gonna do something with a visual editor around desktop applications.
We're gonna do a brief walkthrough of the visual editor, and it'll have the rest of the visual editor options in there. Right now, it doesn't have a couple of platform types in there.
Okay.
But it's got most everything in there. And I forgot yours, the magical disappearing one, or the hidden platform. And then we'll talk about the upcoming thing, and hopefully we'll have gotten some feedback in the forums by then.
Okay. Sounds good.
Sorry, I took over there. You started talking, I go, no, I will talk.
That's good. That's what I wanted you to do.
Now I feel like I've been commanded to talk.
I mind-willed you.
We'll talk.
All right, guys. Have a good night.
Have a good night. See you next
Take care,
week.
guys.
All
Go
right.
play Mega Man.
I will.